Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be yet another childhood ruining conspiracy theories video for you guys. I love filming these videos. I think that they're super fun. It's so much fun to look back on all of our favorite childhood movies and TV shows and just come up with different theories about how they could be a little bit different and a little bit darker than we thought. So without further ado, let's get into the theories. All right, the first two theories have to do with Barbie. I recently watched the Barbie movie for the first time and I loved it and it was incredible, but there are so many conspiracy theories surrounding Barbie that it just blew my mind. The first theory I want to talk about has to do with how Elf and Barbie are actually connected. The theory goes that Buddy the Elf, after, coming into the real world, got very interested in the corporate world, and obviously his dad has like a normal job. His skill set includes working with a bunch of toys. So what would be the perfect place for Buddy the Elf to start an actual job in the real world? Mattel, which then Buddy climbed the corporate ladder and became the CEO of the largest doll company to ever exist. And I can't think of a better person for that job than Buddy the Elf. Honestly, I kind of believe this theory. I feel like it kind of connects cutely. I'm here for it. Okay, the next Barbie theory actually makes so much sense to me. It's the idea that in the Barbie movie, the reason that the stereotypical Barbie, Margot Robbie, the stereotypical Ken, Ryan Gosling, never actually worked out and Barbie could never love him back because he actually was not the stereotypical Ken. So the theory is that Ryan Gosling's Ken is actually Beach Ken, and this makes so much sense because his job is beach. That's literally the only thing that he's good at. It goes into the theory that there is no beach Barbie, so the closest thing just naturally go for it, the stereotypical Barbie. But that's why the stereotypical Barbie doesn't like Ken back, because he's actually just beach Ken, not stereotypical Ken. Viewers actually theorize that Scott Evans' Ken is the stereotypical Ken that Barbie is supposed to be with. And apparently if you rewatch the movie with this conspiracy in mind, it like completely changes it. So I'm actually really excited to do that. But I think it makes a lot of sense because Barbie never wanted Ken around even before she started having like her dark thoughts of like death. She just like still didn't really want to hang out with Ken too much. She wasn't really down for it, and it's because he's not the Barbie that was designed for her. But stereotypical Barbie being paired with beach Ken ended up like catapulting the movie and made the movie what it is, so it makes sense why that pairing was never supposed to work out. I mean, the relationship between Barbie and Ken is described pretty toxically when the narrator says Barbie has the best day every day and Ken only has a good day when Barbie looks at him. Barbie is completely happy with her perfect life and enjoying her time with her friends, while Ken is constantly anxious and worried about his relationship with Barbie and just trying to gain her attention and affection. While this relationship between Margot Robbie's Barbie and Ryan Gosling's Ken wasn't a perfect match, it obviously ended up catapulting Barbie to realize how unhappy she was. Another part of this theory, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that Barbie and Ken, those two were not meant to be together, is that Gloria also had something to do with it. We know that Barbie's subconscious comes from Gloria, which is why when Gloria was having negative thoughts about death, playing with Barbie, that's when Barbie began to have these thoughts as well. So the theory goes that because Gloria never had a Ken doll, she never thought about how Barbie and Ken should be interacting. Instead, she was focused on Barbie's personal journey and connections with her friends. I think these two theories really go hand in hand and complement each other because Gloria was never interested in giving Barbie a romantic storyline, and that's kind of what the Barbie movie is all about. So I think that that's a pretty cool theory, and I'm here for it. Honestly, this theory makes so much sense. I love it. All right, the next two theories are from Home Alone. One of them is kind of dumb, and one of them is kind of good. So I guess we'll save the best for last and talk about the stupid one first. But that there is a theory about the Home Alone Polka King, who is like such a random ass character that you probably maybe even forgot about. It's theorized that the Polka King is actually the devil himself. So the Polka King, aka Gus Polanski, only arrives when Kate McAllister specifically says that she'll do anything, even if quote, "I'll have to sell my soul to the devil himself." As soon as she says this line, Gus approaches her and offers her a ride back to Chicago. So this has led conspiracy theorists to believe that the Polka King is actually Satan and was taking up Kate on her offer, and she sold him her soul. I guess there's an old myth that says that you can give an offering to the devil near a crossroads. The devil will show up and deliver it in exchange for your offering. So the theory goes because Kate was at the Scranton airport at this time, there is a pretty big crossroads. That was the devil himself presenting. I don't know if I believe it, and like theoretically she exchanged her soul to this man so that she could get home to Chicago. What do you guys think? I think it's kind of dumb, but it's kind of funny to me that like people actually have a theory about like the Polka King. The next theory though makes so much damn sense. It's a very dark theory about Peter McAllister. The theory is that Peter McAllister actually left Kevin home alone on purpose. There's actually quite a bit of evidence to back up this theory, and I've seen this movie dozens of times and never noticed this. But in the scene where they're cleaning up the mess from the pizza, you see Peter McAllister grab a bunch of napkins and throw them away, and in the trash can you can actually see Kevin's American Airlines plane ticket. I actually had never really thought about the fact that at one point the mom was like passing out the plane tickets. If Kevin's ticket had not been thrown out, it would have been likely that they would have discovered that Kevin wasn't there prior to them boarding the plane. Not even likely, pretty much 100%. So it would have to be a very crazy coincidence that it happened to be Kevin's ticket that was left behind and thrown away, and also Kevin that was the one that stayed home. I'm aware it's a movie, but it seems like almost a little too good to be true. But it makes sense when you think about it in the vein that Peter McAllister had orchestrated this whole thing. There's a theory that Peter McAllister was struggling at work and was going bankrupt. So in order to protect himself and protect the secret from his family, he hired the burglars, Harry and Marv, to rob his house over the Christmas holiday so that they can file an insurance claim. So you might be asking, what's the point of leaving Kevin behind? Well, Kevin was like the runt of the family. It seemed like nobody liked him. Everyone was always bullying him. And perhaps Peter McAllister is far more sadistic than we thought. And he thought it would be a good idea to leave Kevin there in hopes that the robbers would get scared and kill him. And so not only could he take out an insurance policy on all of the missing items in their house, but also a life insurance policy on his son, which is just very freaking dark when you think about it. I don't know if I believe that it's true, but I do think that it is a very interesting theory, and I wouldn't be too surprised if that was the case, but let me know you guys' thoughts. All right, the next theory that we're going to be talking about comes from none other than Winnie the Pooh. There's a pretty dark theory about Winnie the Pooh that I think will completely change your perception of the show and your childhood. Conspiracy theorists claim that each character in Winnie the Pooh actually represents a psychological disorder. Pooh has an eating disorder, Piglet has anxiety, Tigger has ADHD, Rabbit has OCD, and Eeyore has depression. And it also involves Christopher Robin, who is allegedly schizophrenic because he is quite literally seeing these talking animals that don't actually exist. So, end of childhood ruining. Pretty dark. Don't like it. Moving forward. The next theory is about Sesame Street. I loved Sesame Street as a kid. Sesame Street is basically one of those shows that you'd think would be completely innocent and doesn't have any conspiracies behind it. Wrong. There's a very dark theory about Count Von Count. Count Von Count is one of the most popular Muppets in Sesame Street series. He's super friendly, non-scary vampire. And he obviously helps the children learn how to count. But what if there's something darker going on? So because the Count is a vampire, there is a conspiracy theory that the Count uses the fun number games to lure the children in, and then he kills them and drinks their blood. I guess it would explain why the kids in Sesame Street are always constantly changing and always cycling out new characters. So I want to hear your thoughts on this because it kind of ruined Sesame Street a bit. I mean, honestly, the Count always scared me though. I know he's not supposed to be like a scary vampire, but he scared the shit out of me as a kid. But honestly, so did Elmo. So like, maybe there was just something wrong with me. All right, the next theory comes from the movie Up, which is arguably Disney's saddest movies. It's honestly about to get sadder. So the theory goes that Carl is actually dead. Conspiracy theorists believe that Carl died in his sleep the night before he was supposed to be evicted, and the entirety of the movie takes place basically in limbo between heaven and earth. And Russell is actually an angel who's trying to gain his wings. This kind of makes sense because Russell explains to Carl that he is in need of one last badge to become a senior wilderness explorer. And his one last task is none other than assisting the elderly. So he tells Carl that he can help him cross the street or the yard or the porch, but basically that he just has to help him cross something. With this theory, he quite literally does. He's helping Carl pass through from the physical world to the afterlife. Carl's house represents his attachment to the physical world, and Paradise Falls is how Carl imagines heaven to be. So while his house is raising and flying away, it kind of represents Carl's transition from the physical world to the spiritual one. And when he lets go of his house, he can actually finally reunite with Ellie and be in heaven. This theory's dark. I don't frickin' like it, but it also kind of does make a lot of sense. All right, the next conspiracy theory is a How I Met Your Mother conspiracy theory. I love this show, and there is a very interesting theory about Barney Stinson that I actually believe. So we know Barney Stinson is addicted to suiting up and wearing suits all the time, and the theory goes that suiting up is actually a metaphor for cocaine. So obviously the show constantly shows Ted using the metaphor of eating a sandwich for smoking weed, and that's like a known thing when he tells the story to the kids. There's a theory that Barney's love for suits is actually symbolic of his love for coke. First, let's look at the facts. Barney is a rich, successful man working on Wall Street in New York City. Coke is kind of common there. But there is one specific episode that makes this theory seem 100% true, and it is the episode Girls vs. Suits, when Barney is trying to get with the hot bartender, but she says that she doesn't date guys who wear suits. It makes a lot more sense to think that she's saying she doesn't date guys who do drugs, because, like, what does wearing suits have to do with anything? So Barney tries to stop wearing suits, and he literally has withdrawal syndromes, trying to refrain from suiting up, and he even goes to the bathroom during the episode just to put on a suit for just a minute, and he comes back out energized and happy. And I feel like even if this theory wasn't intentional for the entire series, 100,000% it was intentional for that episode. I mean, like, how else? It just is. It just was. Like, literally 100%. Also, Barney is always asking Ted to suit up with him, and most of the time Ted says no. But I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on this theory, because I actually really believe it. I think it makes perfect sense, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. Like, I think it's really funny and clever, so let me know your thoughts. The next theory I want to talk about comes from Courage the Cowardly Dog. We've talked about a few theories about this show before, and honestly, it doesn't surprise me that there are a lot, because the show was fucking weird. There is a pretty dark theory that Courage the Cowardly Dog is actually somewhat based on a true story. So the theory goes that the house from the show is actually based on a real house in the middle of nowhere. So this house is in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, in a town called Truth or Consequences, which is just a freaking creepy ass name for a town. Why would you live there? In real life, an elderly couple actually lived in this house and reported many strange happenings while they were living there, until one day they completely vanished and only left behind their dog. It's actually theorized that the couple was murdered by infamous serial killer David Parker Ray, who is better known as the Toy Box Killer. He lived about 7 miles north from Truth or Consequences, and he abducted and murdered between 40 and 60 different people, so it's definitely very plausible that could have been what happened to them. And I just think it's pretty crazy that they based a children's show off of something so horrific and scary. I just think that that's kind of an interesting concept. But do you think it was intentional? It kind of adds up. Like, what if the old couple from Courage the Cowardly Dog are, like, actually not there? Like, what if they're just in Courage's imagination and that's why he's so anxious all the time? because somebody came and took and murdered his parents. Kind of makes sense. All right, the next theory I want to talk about is about Legally Blonde and Clueless. These are two of my favorite movies of all time. I love women. Like, I just love movies about strong women. I think it's so fun. And there's a theory that Clueless is actually a prequel to Legally Blonde. So there's a theory that Cher from Clueless actually grew up to be Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. I don't really think that this makes too much sense, but we're going to talk about it and then talk about a theory that like I had about it that makes a little bit more sense. But essentially, of course, the characters are both blonde. They would be around the same age, like in regards to the timeline of things. They're both super cute, stylish, fun. Like, that's just kind of their vibe. Cher is obviously known to not be so knowledgeable of a student, but she's really great at debate. Like, that's the one class she's really good at, and she would always win. And it's because she knew how to speak well and efficiently make her point, and overall was really convincing. She showed a lot of potential to be a great lawyer, which of course made sense because her father was a lawyer. Theory goes on to say that Cher grows up to be Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. I don't think that makes too much sense. However, something that I do like about this theory is the idea that maybe Elle Woods grew up watching Clueless. Like, maybe Clueless was an actual movie that existed in the Legally Blonde universe and Elle Woods grew up watching it, and it kind of adds up this way because it makes sense that Elle Woods would gain her way of arguing from Cher because they are very similar. Like, she uses personal anecdotes and stories to make her point and get her point across, and honestly it kind of adds up. The way that Elle presents her case to the jury is so similar to the way that Cher was presenting to her teachers. I just actually believe this theory that like Elle Woods just had a strong, smart female character that she looked up to, and that it was Cher Horowitz. I think it's cute and fun. I love it, but let me know your thoughts. The next theory I want to talk about comes from the movie Beetlejuice. I freaking love Beetlejuice. I'm so excited for Beetlejuice 2, but that is besides the point. There is a pretty dark theory surrounding Beetlejuice that will completely change your perception of the movie. There's a theory that Adam and Barbara's deaths were actually not so accidental. In the beginning of the movie, we see Jane Butterfield, who is the realtor who's basically begging Adam and Barbara to sell their house, even though they protested it many times. So according to this theory, Jane saw the business opportunity that Barbara and Adam's house had, and after unsuccessfully trying to convince them to sell it, she decided to plan their murder. Of course, we see the scene of Adam and Barbara driving home, and the dog runs in front of the car, which causes them to steer off the bridge and led them to their death. So the theory goes that Jane actually somehow lured the dog there and got the dog to cross the path at the exact same time that Adam and Barbara were driving. And there's actually an alternate ending that they literally filmed that kind of makes this theory even a little bit more plausible. In the alternate ending, Jane actually calls Charles and Delia, who seemingly had moved back to New York, and was trying to convince them once again to sell this house. However, Lydia is still living at the house with Barbara and Adam, so they tell Jane that they never want to sell it. Since Jane had presumably already made a very large profit from selling Adam and Barbara's house, because she didn't have to pay Adam and Barbara because they're ghosts. It just looks pretty interesting that she was so adamant on wanting to sell the house again right away to even more wealthy buyers, and it just shows her sense of greed. Obviously, plot details for Beetlejuice 2 have not been revealed yet, but apparently it comes out September 6, 2024. So I'm interested to see if they potentially like go into this storyline a bit. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting concept that perhaps she has an evil villain side that was even more evil than Beetlejuice, but let me know your guys' thoughts. All right, so the next theory comes from one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, Tangled. There's a theory that the real villain of Tangled is actually none other than Flynn Ryder. This theory makes actually low-key a lot of sense. Obviously, Flynn's opening narrative is him explaining the story of Rapunzel and how Mother Gothel stole her. It's later revealed, like, you know, he was telling the story after everything had happened. But it's no surprise that Flynn had grown up in this town where they held a vigil for the lost princess every single year. Like, he was very familiar with the story. Flynn is also wanted for being a thief, as he stole the crown, and he even told the Stabbington brothers that he dreamt of being king and living in a castle. So when Flynn Ryder stumbles upon a hidden tower and finds a girl, looks around the age that the lost princess could have been, with long, beautiful golden hair, The theory suggests that Flynn knew exactly who that was. So the theory continues that Flynn thought pretty quickly and wanted to manipulate Rapunzel into falling in love with him so that in saving her and like falling in love, he would be pardoned by the royal family for being a thief, but also would be perhaps king one day if him and Rapunzel end up getting married. Flynn is obviously very familiar with the story of the Lost Princess, as is everyone in the town, which is why Mother Gothel makes it such a big deal to hide Rapunzel. I just think that there's no way that Flynn wouldn't have connected the dots after finding Rapunzel. What are the odds that you find a girl with beautiful blonde hair that is stuck in a tower for the same amount of time that the Lost Princess had been missing? Like, come on. He put two and two together. It also especially makes sense when we learn about Flynn's background because he actually is named Eugene Fitzherbert and he grew up as a poor orphan who had always dreamed of living in a castle, and he took the name from his favorite book, Flynn Ryder, which inspired him to become more of this rich, free-spirited character that we see in the movie. And ultimately, all of Flynn's like upbringing made him turn to crime in order to create a better life for himself. I do believe that it's a possibility that even though Flynn knew who Rapunzel was when he found her, that maybe he did end up actually falling in love with her. But I do think that maybe his intentions in the beginning were not so good. Like, he knew what he was doing. And I kind of believe that. Let me know your guys' thoughts because I feel like this theory makes so much sense. I would still say that I wouldn't really call him a villain but no, he had an ulterior motive. I feel like that is true. But he did end up falling in love with Rapunzel and he's cute. So it's fine. He's literally a cartoon character, but he's cute. Let me know your thoughts. I kind of believe this theory. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about is probably some of the most childhood ruining shit ever because it is real. This is real stuff, real actors from our favorite childhood movies and TV shows who have done terrible things. So the first one hits home because it's Phil Lewis, who is Mr. Mosby from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I love that man. He's so freaking funny. He's such a great character, like so dynamic. Everything about that character is fantastic. However, something that you probably don't know is that in 1991, Phil Lewis went to jail for manslaughter. He actually killed a 21-year-old girl while he was drunk driving in a car accident, and he only ended up serving 1 year in prison, which is kind of insane in my opinion because like obviously you shouldn't be drinking and driving, and this person literally died as a result of it. I just think that's so crazy. Like, did you guys know that? Actually, it blew my mind and really freaks me out. The next one is a wild story that I cannot believe that I have never heard before. It could be because I wasn't a huge Diary of a Wimpy fan kid as a child, but it is such a recent story that I'm surprised it didn't come up like on TikTok, on my For You page at least. Ryan Granum, who played Rodney in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, he also appeared in Riverdale and Supernatural later in life, committed and planned an insane crime. On March 31st of 2020, then 21-year-old shot his mother with a rifle at his home as she played the piano. He then filmed himself confessing to the murder, and the next day he lit candles all around her body and hung rosary beads from the piano. Obviously a horrible crime within itself, but then he loaded his car with several different weapons and planned to drive towards Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, to murder Justin Trudeau, which is the Prime Minister. He instead, thankfully, ended up going to the Vancouver Police Department and confessed to killing his mom and turned himself in, and he said, quote, "I cannot explain or justify my actions. I have no excuse. It hurts me to think about how badly I've wasted my life." And now he's serving a life sentence. That is so nuts. Like, it's so nuts. I think it's so crazy when any like celebrity commits like an insane crime like that. This kid was just from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Like, he just not only had carried out such a heinous crime against his own mother, but like planned to murder the fucking Prime Minister. Like, that's just nuts and very childhood ruining. Anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these conspiracy theories. I would love to hear your thoughts on them. And if you have any other TV shows or movies that you want me to find conspiracy theories on, let me know, please. Because every show or movie has a theory. That's just facts. So let me know. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Subscribe for new videos every week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.